realize the amount of card games that have come out recently? Games like Flesh and Blood were a big transitioning point for competitive Magic players. Some of the casuals went over to Lorcana, and more recently, Riftbound has been taking the scene by storm. Those games have seen varying degrees of success, and I'm happy for the people enjoying them. A lot of them are actually really great card games, and I've made it my mission to actually try a couple of them. More recently, trying out Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Riftbound, I've noticed some trends in the way that the cards not only are designed, but in the way the products are actually released in their comparison to Magic the Gathering. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to take a tweet from Martin Yuza to frame this discussion around the TCG bubble. The conversation around how Wizards is using their release cadence to potentially just shroud your judgment, to busy your mind, to distract you from the amount of options that exist out there. Unknown stranger of a TCG player, Martin Yuza, as I hide his MTG Hall of Fame notice behind my camera, says there are currently 11 cards banned in Standard, 52 in Modern, 70 in Legacy, 35 in Pauper, 31 in Pioneer, 62 in Historic, and 44 in Commander. I wonder how people that don't play Magic 24/7 keep up with this and how they feel about investing in a deck for these formats. Now, this is a very interesting metric to kind of bring up, like whether or not this has any kind of say in anything. Because let me just say straight up, right? The last time I got into a format, and honestly, the most recent format that I legitimately got into and started playing properly is probably, unironically, Pioneer. It was close. Standard, technically I did first. Technically I did get into Standard, then Pioneer. So I'm going to give it to Pioneer. And when I got into that format, you know, I just went in, picked one of the top decks, right? Like I got in because one of the top decks were shown to me thanks to the Final Fantasy, the Scapeshift deck, right? I had no whim, whams, or wooms about the ban list because I was given a deck that was really interesting to me. I saved up some wild cards, built it, started jamming it, and now at this point, I call myself a semi-expert on the deck. Honestly, I played enough Lumra, Scapeshift, and Pioneer where I feel like at this point, if someone handed me Amulet, I could figure it out as well, right? Like that's how much I've played land-based combo strategies and understood deep lines to interact with. I feel like I could figure it out, right? Casual flex. I didn't worry about the ban list, what was banned or anything. When I got into Modern, it was the same thing as well. I just got in because the Wedge from the Mana Source put out a YouTube video about a Modern mill deck with Glimpse the Unthinkable, Surgical, Hedron Crab, like beautiful things come together, and I built that deck. I didn't care about the ban list. The vast majority of people, in my subjective opinion, do not get into formats understanding a ban list. It is not a relevant thing to keep track of in formats that are this big. Where they are relevant, however, is specifically, in my opinion, in the Standard format. The outlier of 11 cards being banned in Standard. That's where it matters, right? In newer TCGs, where you just are approaching rotation, like the One Piece TCG, I believe, is approaching unification of their Eastern printing and their Western printing next year, alongside rotation. Currently, they are non-rotated and separated, but they have a ban list, which makes it hard to track for new players who may have scarce availability on decks. But even then, there's enough sets where it's fine. There's like 13 damn sets, right? It doesn't matter. Where it becomes a problem is in the most recent sets, especially if a card is banned out of a recent printed set. For example, the Nadu era of things. In Modern, Nadu was banned pretty soon into its time of printing in Modern Horizons 3. So that was a problem technically because Modern Horizons 3 was still being drafted up until that point, and it was still being purchased to a certain degree. And so players had to track that. They didn't know about that. They may have opened some Nadus. They heard some inklings about how it's powerful. Go to build a deck. It's not a thing, right? Another thing where that matters is if a ban window happens closer to a tournament. So specifically for the legacy format right now, we had a ban that happened a couple of weeks before the next Eternal Weekend. You had Eternal Weekend North America, then Eternal Weekend Europe, and the bans have been in between. And so the folks that went to Eternal Weekend North America aren't able to bring their decks to Eternal Weekend Europe, but also the people just going to the European one aren't able to take data from the Eternal Weekend North America to best inform their decisions going into this. It's a blank metagame, it's a whole new one, and for many players that can be exciting. And so these are the two scenarios where I foresee bans actually having an impact. And so it's really weird to quote all of these bans as a mental load on someone trying to get into a format, right? Like, I don't think this actually makes sense in any way, shape, or form. You know, Patrick Chapin comes in here and says, there's a part, that's a part of the issue with Modern Horizons and Commander product. It used to be that banned cards could generally live on in the next format up. Now, moving up introduces intentionally overpowered cards, cutting out spaces for organically overpowered cards to have a home. What is intentionally overpowered and organically overpowered? What does that mean, right? Like we are, okay, we are in a post-fire design era, right? Like there was a fundamental shift in the game, like in my opinion, like pre-fatal push and post-fatal push. And then the next big shift, IMO, right, is fire design with Eldraine, right? The post-Oko era, if you will. We are post-Oko. We are post-fire design. Post-Modern Horizons, right? We are past this at this point. It has been so long. We do not like I feel like the vast majority of Magic players that are actively playing right now do not know a world pre-fire design. That's just my opinion. The vast majority of players that just be getting into the game now and all that stuff, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm statistically wrong here, there's plenty of people kind of playing in the last 30 years and everything. Maybe I'm thinking about the number, the population that I specifically want to get to, whether it's new players or recent players, people getting in the last couple of years, maybe that's what I'm trying to, so I shouldn't say vast majority of players. The vast majority of recent players are brought into Magic in a world where none of this matters, right? None of this matters. We do not need to go back to this era, right? Because organically overpowered and intentionally overpowered, the Venn diagram is almost a circle. It's almost a circle because things are not accidentally overpowered anymore, right? We have so much more cards coming out at all the time, right? All the time. So yes, you are going to have more accidents than anything. We saw that specifically with Nadu. That wasn't intentionally overpowered. They literally wound it down because they felt like it was too powerful for Commander. Then they said no testing. It ended up going into all these formats and being banned in everything anyway. So that was actually an accident. That is not intentionally overpowered. That was arguably organically overpowered. Again, examples of cards that are accidentally overpowered. Very few things based on what we see are actually intentionally overpowered. There are many examples of cards that are actually intentionally meant to be powerful, and they exist in many different facets of decks. One card I can point to specifically is Atraxa. Atraxa, the new one, the 4-color one, the 7-cost one, is literally the single best reanimator target that many decks can even think of at this point. It is the best target for reanimation, for necromancy, for whatever the heck you want to use life and death to bring back said card, right? That was a card that was intentionally powerful. Intentionally overpowered? No, it is a reanimation target. It is held to be as powerful as the card bringing it back from the graveyard. Other than that, you are playing a card that is 4 mana that pays for 1 and cheats it in. You are playing a 3 mana card that allows you and your opponent to put 1 in, or you are freaking hard casting it. Cards these days don't like this type of grading system doesn't necessarily make sense, but I see what Patrick is saying. We are at a point where the bans here don't matter. These are A, not metrics that anybody cares about, but B, when it comes to the design of cards, there is actually more unintentional overpower cards, organic overpower cards, cards that are just placed in a sets that don't have the time to actually be tested, then intentionally made powerful because of the lack of time for testing. Right? We have more intentionality in where cards are actually being placed, right? So if you think about Modern Horizons and the cards that were put in the Commander product versus the cards that were put into the actual environment that was put into Modern and above, look at the Goyfs. The Goyf deck is insane. Barogoyf, Pyrogoyf, insane, broken, busted Magic cards that are so freaking powerful, that do so many damn things. Yes, they're not going to be banned. They are not going to be banned. They're just insane status quo changing threats, right? If you have ever gotten land Dark Ritual into a Barogoyf, you understand the power that you command. That is an insane thing to do, right? Fetch land, Dark Ritual, you got a 2/3 Goyf, you are swinging in, milling yourself, getting more creatures out, you're doing a lot. Okay, let alone if you flipped over a Fable of the Mirrorbreaker and you're copying Pyrogoyfs. Oh my God, things are happening. Okay, so I don't know why we're focusing on the wrong thing. Yes, we are past this. We are in an era of post design. Complaining about this genuinely will not do anything. We need to have constructive angles of criticism towards design. We need to be focused on the real problems in Magic. And it is not the number of cards necessarily that are banned or like differentiating in terms of mental load on people. No one gets into Magic formats, just like this person is saying right here. Why would you invest in a deck for a format without knowing the rules of that format? How would they even know what a format is without knowing what defines it? This is a stupid tweet, right? And that's fine. You know what? I've made stupid tweets as well, but I think we can point out this is a dumb tweet. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Patrick Chapin's response, arguably dumb too, but the merit of Patrick's statement street actually makes more sense than what Martin is trying to put across. There is actually overpowered design, generally speaking, because of Commander product and main sets requiring a Commander product and the amount of legends in every set. That changes the way we play these formats. That is a true statement, right? But we may not see that come out of Mark Rosewater's mouth, but we can understand that from the amount of legendaries and the amount of design meant for commanders, the amount of cards that say each opponent these days instead of target player. Oh, it gets around hexproof. No one gives a damn about your 4 ley line of sanctities in the sideboard. No one gives a damn. Okay, that's not what these cards are meant to be. Fractured Sanity, yes, at a point was maybe meant to do that a little bit. To be fair, cards like that, Tasha's DS after all that was Commander design. That is all Commander design. Okay, so moving on from this, we have all these cards in the even in the Commander format. The Game Changers list, 51 cards on the Game Changers that are arguably on half a ban list anyway. They're on a watch list. Cards that come from the ban list go on the Game Changers list. Cards on the Game Changer list are on a watch list to potentially be banned. It is arguably a ban list already. It is a list where they're on a watch. They're on a watch list. They're on a neighborhood watch. They've been put on the list. I can't even say the E word here. You know the E word that everyone's saying Trump's on. You know I can't. I don't feel like I can say that in this video. Otherwise, it gets demonetized. Even though I want to make a joke out of it. It's a terrible joke to make. Whatever. You get it. You get it. I made a bad joke. Forget this comment. Okay. Regardless, 51 cards on the Commander Game Changers list. Okay, so the argument it's even bigger. It's even bigger, right? Even when it comes to the historic ban list, 71 cards. Wait, okay, so my man said 62 in historic. Why is it 71 here? I must be missing something. I don't know. I'm definitely missing something here. But regardless, there are so many cards on the ban list here. Maybe there are like alchemy cards that are on this ban list that don't matter. But regardless, there are formats that people get into on arena only that have a larger ban list than paper formats. Why would that matter? Why would that even matter? Like, I'm going to get into this, scrape through random research on websites that aren't even legitimate data. Like, I don't have a Goldfish site for this because we don't post league data or something like that. We have no data dumps for stuff like this outside of creator or person made data on any of this. And so we can go in with that and maybe kind of scoop together a list. But all of that is to say people go in by learning and researching said format because they come across someone giving them information about that format, or they play against something that is similar and they realize maybe that's actually powerful in this format and they go in and try and brew around it, right? All of this, it's like timeless. Like People that play Historic may be interested in playing Timeless. I personally, there's more events on Historic, but I personally think Timeless is actually a more interesting format than Historic is. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe I'm just like a vintage elitist that wants it to be vintage. But regardless, this tweet doesn't make any sense. But I think what it kind of alludes to is, with Martin's sentiment and Patrick's sentiment combined, is the idea of we are now past a point of design where we can go back. Cards are now intentionally made in Commander and made for Commander to be able to change 60 card formats. Everything is for everyone. All Universes sets, Universes Beyond sets are for everyone, and they are legal in all formats. And all of the designs of said Commander cards are now for everyone. You do not just go to Commander product for Commander design. You go to Standard product for Standard design. You go to Modern Horizons product, Modern product for Commander design, and kind of topsy-turvy as well, right? You get Commander players saying, hey, I got Modern staples if you want them, right? You open up their jacket here and like, got them staples if you want them. Just come in here into this little alleyway and I got them Badger Mold Cubs at a discount. No, they're not going to be 80 USD. I got Badger Mold Cubs for $1.50 or something, some really wild crap, right? And it's a fake. The minute you take it out of the sleeve, it burns or something in the Magic. I don't know. Some scam, right? Some mythical scam. And the problem is the sentiment of this, in my opinion. The sentiment of wanting to go back is what is holding you back as a Magic player. So right now, 30 years of Magic products. Let's look at this. We see a vast increase. I mean, what was happening in, 05? Dead year. What is this, 4 sets? That's a dead year, right? But regardless, we have all these products coming out exponentially increasing at this point. This is like almost not even a linear curve. This is almost a parabolic curve, right? Almost a parabolic curve, right? So, I mean, especially when you take a look at secret layers and all this stuff, like 48 plus secret layers, like in terms of like just pure product, like almost parabolic curve at this point. And so when it comes to the amount of sets coming out this year, is that we're not escaping this. The Magic fatigue is everywhere. And where we need to compete with this, the reason why we have all of this is to fill in the dead time. Because you have all the Commander players. The Commander players are able to play Magic at all points. The constructed players now don't really have good ways to get in other formats because they don't have good ways to balance them, right? They don't care about Pioneer. Standard is like unbalanced all heck because they keep banning all these cards. And you know what? Modern, I will say, is in a turbulent place, but they actually did recently, relatively recently, within the last year, tried to do unbans, which is great. That is a great step forward. But they did not decide to uniformly balance all these formats, right? We have like a Pauper format panel for Pauper, nothing going on in Legacy, Vintage, all that. So Vintage arguably is fine, but Legacy, no changes for a while. Modern and Standard are probably the most looked after formats. Pioneer forgotten about. There's a mix and match. So players aren't able to necessarily jump into other formats. And as Patrick was saying, you can't necessarily go from a Standard deck to a Pioneer deck, or a Pioneer to Modern, or a Modern to Legacy. There are niche examples of how you can. There are, especially when you think about like Boros Energy to the Ocelot Pride deck in Legacy. Like there are examples, okay? But there aren't whole packages that you can bring over. I can't play Lotus Field combo in Pioneer and go play that in Modern. That's not a thing. Don't do that. That is not a thing. You are going to get absolutely gobsmacked. Don't do that, right? If you go to play Dimir midrange in Standard and you go to play the same thing in something like Pioneer, you may not get smacked, but you will get outpaced. You will 100% get outpaced. That is not a good deck in Pioneer because the cards you have access to are way more powerful. You're trying to play Deep Cavern Bats in a format of Thoughtseize. I'm just saying, right? And that's like without porting it over. I'm talking about like literally one-for-oneing it. So we are at a point where you cannot go from format to format. It is not even accessible price wise. There's so many formats that are way more expensive, even though I would argue, you know, things aren't like Pokemon, but on average, like decks are actually pretty easy to get. Like in many situations, you can get a Pioneer decks for pretty cheap. And there are certain modern decks that are actually relatively highly affordable. And even Legacy, if you are able to borrow like some duels, you can port over like modern decks almost 1-for-1 in a Legacy, but just like borrowing a couple more pieces. Like the communities that exist in these formats do allow for some transfer, but again, it is hard to do so. You're not going back. The formats are inaccessible. And now because of that, they need to fill in the gap because the competition is steep. The TCG bubble is maybe going to burst, but it is massive. The amount of card games that exist to fill people's time is astronomical at this point. You have not only the big three in Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a big outlier. In my opinion, in terms of marketing and brand, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a big outlier in terms of how it survived. Pokemon is the games, the TV show, the way they've priced their cards in terms of reprints and the chase cards and their the exclusive ones being also the chase cards, but you can buy the base versus, you know, the collectors going for the chase and everything. Like, it creates an ecosystem, but the scalpers in Pokemon are there. They exist. It is hard to get certain Pokemon product, but you can buy top tier worlds winning Pokemon decks for like $100, right? So Pokemon's there, even though you don't have a group format. Magic the Gathering is the top TCG with a high selling group format. No other competitive TCG can say that at this point. One Piece doesn't have it. Gundam is not a pushed game whatsoever in the vast majority of things when you think about all the Bandai IPs. Lorcana doesn't have a group game at all. Altered TCG is DOA. No one be playing Alestrals. I'm going to be honest, right? I'm just going down the whole list. Like Union Arena, dead game, right? Like Riftbound. Riftbound has a multiplayer game format that is arguably not that great because of the point system. Like, there is actually some real fundamental flaws to Riftbound, but they're only on set 1, so there are ways that they can fix it in the future. You can't completely harp on them for just one set, but they have a lot of problems as well, right? The TCG bubble has created a lot of problems for people. And I think a big primary part of that is that a lot of these TCGs falsely assume that they should just be pushing in-person play. They don't do both. Pokemon shifted away from this, and Magic the Gathering is the only one that does it on a large scale, and it is to its benefit. One thing that I keep saying about Riftbound is I want to get into Riftbound. I want to make content for Riftbound. I want to enjoy that game. But once I leave the LGS, I cannot do anything with my cards. I cannot go and play them online unless I have a webcam or friends to play with. There's no matchmaking system. I can't hop into Riftbound Arena, Riftbound Online, and go play Riftbound. There is nothing for me to do with the cards that I have other than sit on them and floss my butthole with them. Let's be honest here. And that is a massive criticism. I don't know why people keep pushing this. It is a massive problem that card games do not have digital ecosystems. It is a massive problem. Yes, it pulls some people away from play, but it also opens it up to way more. It also gives more cross-contamination and testing for other people looking to get into it. People who are casuals in other games looking to get into those games. Magic has so many avenues for that. There are so many Magic the Gathering people, players out there that play other TCGs primarily that I promise you are playing Arena. I promise you are playing Magic Online, but are not going in person. And so to fill this void for Magic the Gathering, they have decided to print way more games because they do not want to give you empty time to go try other TCGs. Magic the Gathering is the only TCG doing this at a successful level. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has Master Duel. Master Duel is a bunk product. Let's be honest. It's a bunk product. It's a whole new format. It's only got one way to play. It's extremely expensive. Pokemon TCG Live does it the best. Honestly, Pokemon TCG is like the best game out there. Price affordability, high skill curve on a lot of decks, really like interesting, crazy stuff happening. Like, it's a crazy game to get into. I'm getting into recently, so I have some bias. So if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comment section down below. But Pokemon TCG Live, you get all those packs. You get those packs online. You scan your codes. They make it super simple where you can put the code up to your webcam. You can scan them. I don't need to manually type them out like I do on like MTG or a Magic Arena. They make it super accessible. But they have that online arena. So I can now go play Pokemon, then go play Pokemon TCG Live and try out brews, and I can do it really easily. Magic allows you to do that as well, but they've caught you in a system where it is also expensive to do that online. They've given you the avenue to do so. So people are still flocking to other games to try and do something new. So instead, of trying to fix their monetary systems, they just sell you more product. That is why we cannot go back. The amount of TCGs out there that are attracting people, you know, Fab TCG and all that stuff, they want to flood the market with as much product as possible, as many ways to play, make it as accessible as product, like not address the secondary market. Don't put, you know, they don't want to harp against proxies, but they don't want to be for proxies because they want to allow people to proxy and play into the game, right? It is a part of it. It is a part of the game. And so they want people to just be focused on Magic, drowning in Magic, only think about Magic. Because the minute you have free time, just like in the old days, if we kind of go back here, in these days, in the early 2010s and everything, where you had time, you had Commander product, but you had Standard product, and you had time in between. Because I remember the Twitter days when people were saying, I'm bored, there's enough time, we're only two months into this format, we got to wait another 2 months, I'm bored, I need a change, I need to do something new. People were talking about this. There was boredom within the games. There was boredom without an alternative way to play. People then started flocking to other games, trying out new things, trying out new hobbies, not coming back to Magic or coming back in a soft way. They want people to stay engaged. They do not want people to go to other TCGs. The problem is Magic is the only one doing it the best when it comes to scamming you. That's what I love about Magic. Not only is the gameplay high tier, it's also scamming you the best. Because Pokemon, it's also solid gameplay, but they're not scamming you enough. They're not doing it best. They're not doing it the way capitalism wants them to do it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Absolute anomaly. I don't know who the hell is playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not gonna lie. I've tried to get into it. I don't know how that game is alive in any way, shape, or form. Lorcana, dead on arrival. As soon as Lorcana dropped, not Lorcana, Pixelborn died, Lorcana dead. Nobody's playing Lorcana. Nobody's playing Lorcana. Don't try and at me with that. Nobody's playing Lorcana. It is not a thriving, growing community. Okay, prize pools aren't out there. Lorcana is almost at the point of where we're giving away Yu-Gi-Oh levels of friggin', you know, air fryers for winning worlds. We're getting there. Okay, Alter TCG, pretty sure that's dead. Union Arena, dead, right? Like, because of prices and availability. One Piece TCG slapping away all of its players. They keep printing, they keep making power creep designs. They're about to go into rotation. That game sucks. Gundam TCG, I can't speak to too much. But I imagine with Bandai and its management, with the multiple amount of TCGs out there, they can't put all of their resources into one. There's like a couple of successful ones. Like, people have spoken to the popularity of the Digimon TCG in my circles, and I'm happy for that. That's cool. It's just a Bandai TCG. It will die eventually, just like the One Piece TCG. I think the One Piece TCG has the ability for long-term success, as long as the anime is being successful, and so that aligns with that. But right now, there are many TCGs out there that are not doing it as well as Magic, and Magic wants you to know that. Magic wants to show you all the product, all the ways to play, all the ways to engage, all the places to go, all of the events. They want you to keep enjoying Magic and playing Magic at all times and only be focused on Magic. And when it comes to the other ones, there's massive problems. You go to Riftbound, the multiplayer mode sucks. There are fundamental problems with the point system and how you get there. Gameplay, like, like literally the Distraction Makers video made it feel so real. The other day, they were talking about the point system, and I played a couple of games of Ripbound the other day, and then I want to get into it. But then how they were talking about the point system and how it feels close, but it's not really, how it's kind of just always around that last point, and how it's so tempo-based and it snowballs is different. But again, I'm giving it leniency because it's only set one. So I'm still interested in Ripbound. I still want to play it. I see the fundamental problems. I'm open to seeing how they have it, but there's so many even rules interactions and stuff that are unclear on cards. Like, it's amateur hour. Like, I am thankful about the way Magic words their cards, the overwording, the amount of text. I'm so thankful for the way Magic does it going into Riftbound. Riftbound is so illogical. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there are so many cards that need to be more clear. So many cards that need to be more clear. The amount of rules, erratas they've made, like going into release, like there are so many problems with these new TCGs. And Magic wants to show you that in such a big way. Yes, Magic is expensive, but you will not find Magic anywhere else. Magic is the most unique TCG, just like how Pokemon is unique in its own way. Riftbound is, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. You will not find those experiences anywhere else. You will find similar aspects of it. But even Riftbound's multiple colored mana system doesn't even work like lands. Like, the color of the lands almost don't matter. It only matters for like when you recycle them away. But that's like a minimal cost as of like set one. Like, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter how many swamps or forests you put in, the equivalent of that into your land pile in Rift. It really doesn't at the end of the day. For some decks, it really doesn't. It's so minimal, right? And so This is where Magic is with its flooding the market. And we have real problems. I mean, look at this tweet from Dexerto. Magic Games principal designer says he wants the card game to collaborate with Clear Obscure Expedition 33. Gavin Verhey said it'd be really nice to do so. You know, who knows what will happen, or even if even if they're up for that kind of thing. So it's not that, you know, maybe conversations have happened, but they would like to. You know, and then you know, everyone's joking about one of the worst news sources on the internet announces UB set or Secret Lair. Someone else tweeted like, can Magic the Gathering just collaborate with Magic the Gathering? And so maybe Expedition 33, a Secret Lair comes down the line or everything. It was a great game, by the way. This is game of the year. Screw all you Stroud supporters. All right. Like, this is 100% Expedition 33 is game of the year. 100% it's game of the year. If you don't know what Expedition 33 is and you're one of those elitists that are like, oh, I've never heard about it in my soul, because you're a loser. You've been living on a rock. Okay. Like, playing it and then having a different opinion is something, but the people who are like just anti for the sake of anti that don't know what this game is, you don't know ball. You need to stop playing 2K and Call of Duty all the time and go play a real game. Okay, go play a real video game. But we have bigger problems in the Magic community. The Secret Lair model, the amount of Universes Beyond collabs that we have, the throwing darts at the wall until we find something that works. We know things that work. Spider-Man didn't work, but Avatar seems to be working. Final Fantasy was one of the highest selling sets of all time, and so was Lord of the Rings, and rightfully so. They're great Magic sets. A lot of people have fond memories of them. We have things to complain about. And Magic wants us to forget all of that stuff. They want us to not realize what those problems are. They want us to complain, like Martin Yuza, on the number of cards banned in Pauper and how that informs mental load on people getting into a format. Right? Patrick Chapin, close. He was getting there. I think like this last sentence really just kind of derailed it. But let me know how you feel in the comment section down below. Am I just blabbing again? Am I making any sense? I did go on a bit of a rant there, but I had a lot to say about this. I wanted to get off my chest. But regardless, let me know how you feel about modern card design and the state of the TCG market and the bubble itself that might pop. Everything's a bubble. Everything feels like a bubble, all held up by NVIDIA and GPUs. All the GPUs that they're putting into your brain and inside the Magic cards that you're flicking all day. They will take over. Skynet is soon. Was that a good way to end the video? Skynet is soon? Skynet is impending? Skynet is forever? I don't know. I'm not a writer. That's why the Terminator movies also ended up bad at some point. They wrote themselves into loops. Anyway, I'm just saying nonsense at this point. The video's done.